Hello, and welcome to the Journey with Janie podcast. I am your host, Jane Anderson, and I'm pleased to say that I am back in Corbridge, busy getting set up for my in-person support group here at the Angel Inn. For any of you who are within the area and listening, I am here from 9:30 till 11:30 every Wednesday at the Angel Inn in Corbridge, and it's a drop-in session currently, and this will change at some point once I get a group together that can grow and support each other on their journey of grief to growth. So I'm looking out the window, it's raining, it's very autumnal feel today. I'm still in the summer attire, not wanting to actually give in to the season is changing. And yeah, most of you know me. I love to be in my bare feet and flip-flops as long as I possibly can. So today I thought it would be worthwhile doing a reintroduction to myself. Yesterday I had a brilliant day at the Northumberland National Park Wellbeing event, which is their second one that they've run for rural communities and networking, and that was absolutely amazing. I had the opportunity to share what Journey with Janie is all about and talk to some amazing businesses who have diversified with their farming businesses, and yeah, share thoughts and feelings as to what next steps we need to take. And yeah, all in all, a pretty good day. So I'm happy, I'm smiling, and I'm always grateful that the connections that I make will lead to something at some point. So with that in mind, I presented yesterday a 10-minute talk. So it's not just a reintroduction. It's not just me talking about me. So if you think, oh, I know who Jane is, I don't really need to listen to this. Stay tuned. There is some top tips on grief and what grief actually is. And a lot of it is relating it to the rural community, as this is kind of where my heart is. So it's like I always say, you can take the farm girl into the city, but my heart is always on the land. So with that, for those of you who are listening, just so you know, my slides don't have words on, they are basically pictures. So I will explain the pictures before I go into the talk on that particular slide. So without further ado, I shall hopefully share the screen and you will be able to see where we are. So my first slide was basically introducing me, and it's my logo. It's what's on the top of the podcast. And I basically sat around, started explaining what Journey with Janie is. Obviously, I'm the founder of Journey with Janie, and my work is all about helping people navigate life's changes and losses. Not only the big ones, like the death of a loved one, but also the quiet ones, like the changes in health, changes in relationships, changes in work, which could be a change of a job, or it could even be retirement, and even identity, which was huge for me. My own journey into this began after my husband, Jonathan, died, as many of you already know. My identity as a farmer's wife, gone, poof, just like that. From the moment, it happened, and walking out of the hospital going, oh my goodness, asking myself, well, who am I now? And over time, it led me to the work that I do now as a grief guide, supporting others to find gentle ways of moving forward. So with that, I'm going to move on to slide number 2, which is a beautiful beautiful morning sunrise with the mist lying in the valley and the hills in the background. Beautiful clear sky. And this is basically grief to growth, which is what I feel is the moving forward. A lot of people say just move on. We don't move on, we move forward and we grow, so our grief actually gets smaller. So we hold the grief, we always carry the grief, and it's not something that you can just get rid of, but you can put it into a bucket and the bucket gets bigger and the grief gets smaller. So that is on to slide 3, which was gratefully received yesterday. It's a beautiful picture of a group of what we call gimmers, which are female sheep, are ready to go off to the mart. And Jonathan and his dad and mum spent hours getting these sheep prepared for market, shall I say, as breeding sheep. So they go off to other farms and breed lambs for other farmers. So there's a beautiful black and white collie running around at the back, holding these sheep and in a nice green field. So I labelled this as what grief looks like, and rural life and community is part of who I am, hence the picture of the sheep and the collie dog. And within the rural life, we all understand cycles, as in seasons change. Animals are born and lost, not lost, die, shall we say. Land gives and takes. As we know, it's been dry this year, so the animals are still taken from the land. So that's it. And nature does its thing. It never gets it wrong. Like I mentioned at the start, it's raining today. We've all been crying out for rain. So yeah, we're all happy bunnies, farmers today. Although some will complain because they haven't got their crops in. There'll always be somebody grumbling about the weather. Farmers are renowned for that. Within the season, spring always follows winter. Summer always follows spring, etc., etc. Although sometimes we may question which season we are actually in at some point. At some times we're up in the hills here in Northumberland, in the UK. In general, and I am really generalising this, on the outside, we might seem quite practical about loss in the rural community, about loss and grief, to be honest. A lot of it, kind of, we'll sweep it under the table. We know all about death and how to deal with it, and we all put on a brave face. And honestly, I probably did that for a couple of months after Jonathan's death. And the thing for me is the realization that actually on the inside we are feeling heavy, confused, and sometimes even lonely, because it's like a huge thing that's happened. But then you can also look at this as, one of my big things is that grief is many things. There's a huge long list. I mentioned them at the start. And this is partly why I've put the picture of the collie dog and the sheep on the slide. When farmers lose, or when farmers have their collie dogs, they are like their partner in crime. They do all the work together. So when a collie dies, the farmer has lost their partner, I suppose, partner in work, a rhythm, and even part of who they are. I've often mentioned that my dogs, Tilly and Bella, are my sounding boards, and I'm sure if they could tell some real tales if you listened, and they repeated what I spoke to them about. So that's what grief really is in my eyes. It's not only about death, it's about losing part of the life as you knew it. So for me, when Jonathan died, I didn't just lose him in the physical, I lost the plans we'd made, the roles we had together, as parents, I suppose, as a farmer's wife and a farmer. The future I thought I could count on, because we all make plans for the future. And that's when I began to see that grief was more than just sadness. It's about the identity and the meaning, and of course, love. So I'm going to switch to the next slide, which is a picture of small steps creates gentle change. So I've got a beautiful picture of the sun reflecting into a puddle, which has a little heart-shaped sun in the reflection, a compass, and some snow with some footsteps in. So one thing that helped me and now helps the people that I work with is looking at grief through a simple lens of thoughts, feelings, and actions. So for me, being guided by a friend to mentorship and starting to understand the power of our mind was key to my rediscovery. So for reference, the brain is not your mind, but that's a whole different talk in itself. And I have touched on this on previous podcasts. So I work alongside the Dynamite Lifestyle pillars and relating them to grief alongside my David Kessler work. So this helps to get a sense of how our mind works, partly why I've used the pictures rather than the words on slides yesterday, was so people got to realize that our mind actually works in images. And when I spoke to people afterwards and said, can you remember any of the pictures that I put on and what was the relevance to that for you? So that was quite useful for me to get some feedback on that. So that is one of the main reasons that I look at the mindset in the attitude as being like what our thoughts are, how we react to people when or respond. We don't react, we respond. The alignment, where I continually asking myself what still matters now, where am I going next? And for me, the alignment bit was the finding me and my purpose and continuing the journey of Jonathan's values and legacy for Charlotte and James, my two beautiful children. And action. We get nowhere with action, without action. One small gentle step at a time. Some days it can just be as simple as making a cup of coffee and sitting in that chair that was your loved one's chair in the kitchen. And from this learning, and like I mentioned before, my David Kessler training as a grief educator, I've now created a very powerful link between the two as part of my grief to growth gentle steps. So with that, I've switched the slide for those of you who are listening, and I have 5 things on the slide, which are pause, name, act, meaning, and flip. Now, this was created a lot of laughter yesterday because I had my little bag with props. And I haven't brought that today, so I am going to describe what I held up to explain each of those words. So I'm holding a stone in my hand, just imagine it in your mind, and this is a symbol of grounding, finding your space, getting you to a point where you're taking a pause and you're being present in the now. You're not going over the what ifs, you're not going over the whole story again and again. So that was the stone, the pause. Pause for you and being present in the now moment. Secondly, I held up a lovely small notebook. I go nowhere without paper and pen. And the notebook is naming it. Name is the word I've got on the screen. So we find that writing things down or naming what still matters to you is very powerful. A lot of people talk about journaling, and hands up, open and honest, I Googled journaling every time somebody mentioned, do you journal? And journaling is basically writing out your thoughts, getting it out on paper, and it actually takes it out of your body, so you're not actually attached to your thoughts. So if there's things you need to let go of, you can write them out. Act is the next one. So at this point, I'm holding up my mug, my Santa Claus mug, and this symbolizes an everyday act that we do. We all make a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and like I've already mentioned in previous bits, for me, it was making that cup of coffee that Jonathan always made for me in the morning, and sitting in his chair at the kitchen table, just changing how I did things. And that was a small thing, but it was huge for me, getting out of bed and being able to do that. Number 4 is meaning. It took me a while to find meaning in why things like this have happened. Oh, I'm holding up a candle, by the way. Apologies at this point. So for me, the candle was representing light in darkness. And what I said yesterday was, always remember there is no darkness. It is just the absence of light. So it's holding that meaning in your growth so you can grow and move forward. And then, of course, my beautiful books. I had I think it was, you never realised that I used a book with a ribbon in. I opened the book and literally turned the page and explained the flip process of flipping the page gently. You're not actually closing the book. You're flipping the page to start a new chapter on your grief to growth journey. So I don't know whether I said this at the start, but this was basically how I explained with my little brown paper bag with all these things in, is the holding the grief with care. So yeah, and that was how I went about that yesterday. So just a reminder for everybody, because it's pause to purpose, grief to growth, and just always know that you are there in the present moment, and you can grow if you find the people to help you. So these aren't rules. These are just my thoughts and what worked for me. And I go in depth with these a lot further when I work with people. So these are just gentle reminders that we don't need to rush. We don't need to do this alone, and we can take our time, and that's fine. Grief is unique to us all, and just like we are all unique. So one thing I left them with yesterday was the one thing that I hope they would take away from me speaking to them yesterday was grief is not moving on. Grief is about moving forward, gently, carrying love and meaning with you. So on that note, I am going to leave you with that. Thank you all for joining me on the Journey with Janie podcast. Always remember, there is something within you that knows no limits. It's time to believe in you. Click the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. I love reading your reviews and comments, so right away. So, if you're ready to take those small steps to transform your true self, let's do life together.